I'm going to be honest, I was a little concerned about Tarkov 1.0, but the Tarkov TV that we've just seen from Nikita has basically blown that out the water for me with all of his plans for this year and the next year. After 1.0, we really had no idea what was coming before, and BSG had their heads down for months. But now we know that basically 1.0, which was a bit of a disappointment to some people, given that it just came with the storyline quests itself and the method to escape and not really anything else, obviously a huge piece of work, but some people were expecting more. But now we know that there is a huge amount of content coming to EFT that is possibly even more exciting than 1.0 itself. Actually, fortunately to us, the 1.0 is really just another patch to them, and that the development is continuing on almost more so than it was for the storyline itself. So let's go through everything on Tarkov TV that we just heard about. I'm going to go through a few different categories. Firstly, the full timeline and things that you should be looking forward to, because this is going to change the game quite a lot. Secondly, things that annoyed me, because this podcast actually did have some ups and downs. I would say it's mostly good, but some of it I don't really like at all. Then we're going to talk about the new prestige system after that, and finally some extra bits and pieces along with new player advancements that they're putting in to try to help people get in. Again, this is maybe slightly controversial because bringing in new players means easing some of the requirements and reducing the hardcore nature of the game, but I'll leave it up to you as to whether you think this is a good thing or not. So firstly, let's go through the state of play at the moment and what we're going to expect over basically the next year. So right now, there is a customs event that got launched just after the podcast. This is with Reshala and Gluha on customs. You can go and play, go and fight against those guys. And every single scav on that map is now a boss guard, which is pretty exciting. It means that they've all got good gear and you're going to get shot at much more aggressively on that map than you would normally running around customs. So it's pretty fun. After this, we're going to be expecting some kind of shoreline event at some point. And then also in May is the icebreaker. So this is the thing that we've been waiting for a really long time. This is the huge map that they've been working on for ages. Actually, it's probably the biggest event that they've ever done. We've seen some of the grey boxing and wireframes of the icebreaker ship itself. It looks like it has at least 7 or 8 levels to it. There's a new boss. There's a trailer, which I'll play some of the background footage for in the background of this video as well. And the guy looks super cool. He kind of looks like a Black Division-y sort of dude. And this is BSG leaning more into these single player-esque storyline events or raids within the multiplayer experience. Nikita kept talking about this over and over again. So this is quite interesting that he wants to lean this way. I think because the experience they've had with 1.0 and with Terminal, they've probably got themselves a bit more experience in actually delivering something in that way. And it's a bit easier to control the narrative and the storyline if people are in a restricted, more single player-like experience, if you want people to experience certain things in a particular way, rather than just the usual chaos of multiplayer open raids like we normally are used to in EFT. So alongside a boss on the icebreaker ship itself, it does sound as if the radiation mechanic is going to be introduced with icebreaker. He did say, well, it is a nuclear powered ship when somebody asked him, alluding to but not really saying anything about it. But based on what he said, there's a good chance that there's going to be radiation in the game with the icebreaker ship itself.
Radiation. Radiation will be pretty soon. Because icebreaker, it's a nuclear powered icebreaker, by the way.
We don't really have any other details about what it's about, whether it's going to be a method of escaping Tarkov or something like that, but I think you can be pretty confident that it's going to be a new chapter in the storyline. Whether it leads to a special ending or something remains to be seen, but it should be really, really fun, and it should be coming in the next month. And given that I'm recording this on the 11th of May, basically means it should be out in the next 3 weeks or so. Alongside that, there's going to be a Twitch Drops campaign as well coming in May, so people can get some goodies for watching people. He showed a few examples of the boxes or some of the items that people are going to be able to get. There's one which is a holodilnic, which is branded, some cool stuff like that. So just some fun cosmetics that is coming if you're following your favorite streamers online. So we'll have to see exactly how that campaign works out as well. Now, something that is exciting to me for the future is that Nikita said they're working on a system to deal with automated events. So you could have an event every weekend, for example, or all the bosses on one map, or there's 100% boss for these 2 particular maps. Something along those lines where they don't have to, as a team, actually manually go and put all of these events in, because sometimes we go through these periods where the team's busy and we don't see them for a long time. So if we just had them automated, which is what they're working on, then you could have something fun every weekend or just on a periodic basis without having to wait for the team to manually update it. And yes, it's probably going to be the same types of events over and over, but at least it gives you something to do. On the more bespoke end, he did mention that there's going to be an old factory event at some point, which should be really, really fun. I believe that the map that they have for this is the final version of factory just before they changed it to its current iteration, so it has the whole med section, but Skybridge is still nice and small. There's a lot of people who prefer the old factory just because of the pace. The new factory is probably more Tarkov-like, to be honest, in general, and you don't run into any super crazy spawn fights or anything most of the time now. Obviously, the map's still really small compared to the others, but it's a lot more balanced. But it does mean that because it's quite dark, people tend to slow play it a lot, and it's just not the same vibe as it used to be. Factory used to be the place people went to get the sort of Tarkov arena experience, but within base EFT to still have the gear fear and the reward for killing other people, which you don't really get in arena. So that kind of middle ground ended up disappearing when it got updated to the latest iteration. And it's easy to say, yeah, just go and play arena, but you don't get the people's gear and you don't get the number go up and lizard brain say yippee like you do in EFT. So it's going to be nice to see that event back, because Old Factory was really a vibe, and anybody who didn't get the chance to play it will get to see what everybody is talking about with the hype of it. So these events we've talked about are mostly going to be in May. Obviously the automated system is a bit further out, but some of the most exciting stuff coming to Tarkov is happening in June. We are going to be looking at a Lighthouse rework, which I didn't think BSG were going to do. Nikita put out a poll ages ago about which map do people want to update, and he kind of went around the houses updating every single map except the one people wanted him to update, which was Lighthouse. And I appreciate that it was difficult, and they also said recently that they weren't going to do it because they didn't have enough time. But it sounds like they are now actually going to change Lighthouse. They're going to fix it. They're going to do something with it. Remains to be seen exactly how they're going to do that, but the map needs a fundamental overhaul because it is, I would say, consistently probably the least favorite map across the community. I don't play it unless I really, really have to, just because there's no options on it. Anybody who listens to the ScavTalk podcast will know us hating on Lighthouse all the time. It's just a restricted choice map. You have to play it in a very, very particular way. It limits the playstyle ability of the players on it, and I'm really, really happy that we're going to get a rework on it because you're so forced through it for doing Lightkeeper and all sorts of other stuff. I would like that map to be a joy to play. Right now it isn't, so we're going to look forward to that. Apparently that's coming in June, which is much earlier than I thought, actually. I thought that was going to take a few months, so we'll see. Maybe they just make a few tweaks here and there. And I genuinely think that they would only need to do a few bits and pieces, give a few extra routes, maybe put like a tunnel under the road so you can get across. It doesn't need that much to actually fix it, but right now most of the map is unplayable. Open ground where you could just be sniped at will from anybody who just is willing to sit there and spawn at the moment, which just makes the gameplay excruciating. Alongside this, or after this, around the same time, not really sure, is the seasons, which is probably the main thing that most people are looking forward to in EFT this year. So this is the return of the wipe system. Every time I do a video about this, every time I talk about this on stream, people are confused about what's going to happen, no matter how many times we've spoken about it. So the current player that you're playing on Tarkov, your character, your PMC right now, is never going to wipe. And that's the same for PvE. So the new account is going to be a third account alongside the PvE guy and the PvP permanent, and that's going to be our seasonal account. This is effectively going to replace wipes for those people who like a periodic reset and running the race and leveling up the traders, which I would say is probably the majority of the veteran community of EFT. It's not everybody, but it's most people. And this is where we're going to see the cool new features coming in. We're going to see something like radiation, bad weather. Nikita said this before. There's going to be seasonal modifiers that mean that it's different to the base game. It's not going to be the same. It'll be a different experience. Maybe not necessarily harder, but just different. So it's a different challenge, or maybe there won't be any traders for a week, or who knows, right? There's going to be do different stuff on seasonal versus main. And if you don't like it, you can always go back and play your main character. This is one of the big problems with the hardcore tests that they tried to do, is that only a small limited portion of the player base actually wanted to play Tarkov in that way, and forcing everybody to do it meant that it ended up getting a quite bad reaction, rather than splitting it out as a separate hardcore account, which I still think they should have done. But anyway, that's in the past. So seasonal is potentially that place for this to happen. One of the great things about seasonal that they're testing, which I think could be quite fun, is some kind of RPG balancing of perks and debuffs. They did show a work in progress. These aren't final, but I'll bring them up on screen. And this shows you that you can pick buffs for your character, you could pick debuffs for your character, and there's supposedly going to be some kind of points-based system where obviously you can't just stack loads of buffs onto your guy without taking an appropriate debuff. So whether it's 3 points for this and 1 point for that, plus or minus, and you have to get above a certain score, I don't know. But the examples that they've given here are quite interesting. And he said that there's a whole bunch of other interesting ones as well. And he mentioned a perk or a debuff called Third Leg, and they both kind of laughed.
There's also a perk called Third Leg, but its effect will be revealed during the season.
So we'll see. There's probably going to be some jokes in there too. I'm excited to see what they've come up with for it. It was confirmed, actually for the second time, that the seasonal PMC accounts are going to be on separate raids, completely separate raids. from the regular PMCs. And this is just because, imagine if, let's just use radiation for example, there was radiation in the Shoreline Resort and you had to have special gear for it. Well, how would you play those raids with a regular PMC that doesn't have those conditions? Well, they're going to be in there without any of the stuff, and you've got the stuff on, you've got these extra restrictions, they're in there, they don't even care, they don't see it. It just doesn't really make any sense. So Nikita did confirm that the seasonal accounts are going to be match made against seasonal accounts only, and permanent PMCs are going to be match made against permanent PMCs only.
How are the seasonal profiles and our original profiles going to interact with one another? You won't be able to interact because it's like separate realm. Seasonal characters, seasonal thing. It's like the story and everything. It will be around seasonal character. You know, you won't have the interaction between.
Maybe towards the end of the season that stuff goes away and they join back together, but at the moment it seems kind of unlikely that that'll be the case. This does mean that the PMCs over on the permanent account probably will see much longer queue times or much more empty raids, which is probably more likely what will happen. I know the raid timer has reduced a lot at the moment, it's quite quick to get into raids now, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Those players who are playing on PvP permanent are probably looking for a slightly more chill casual time, otherwise they would be over on seasonal, so having a slightly lower player count on permanent, at least at the beginning of the wipe for the seasonal accounts, probably isn't the worst thing. Those people who want the full octane, race to the top, you know, fighting against tons of people and prove your worth, they're going to be on seasonal anyway, most likely. And so I almost feel like it's going to be self-balancing, it won't end up being a big problem. Another thing that is a work in progress with the seasonal was he was asked about whether people will be able to prestige, and initially he said no, there's not going to be any prestige on seasonal, and then he thought about it for a minute and said actually, why not? If people finish all the content and they can prestige and do it again, I don't see why not. So he said yeah, it's possible, we'll have a look into it. So whether that comes or not, I don't really know, but it looks like it might be a possibility. And we will talk about prestige a little bit later because it's a big old segment on its own about how much easier it has gotten, which some people really like and some people don't like, but I'll leave that for a moment so we can get through the rest of the timeline and then get to that in a bit. So after this, there's a few other events. The timeline gets a little bit hazy, but the next one that's probably quite certain is the Halloween event. We were pretty sure that Nikita was going to do a zombies event this time. He said it was probably one of the favorite events of his. And I know that last time, they actually didn't do that much for the zombies. They were doing some tests of trying to make simpler entities that didn't have full inventories and that kind of thing. So they didn't have to send across lots of data, so they could have more entities on a map of a simpler nature. And this time they're going to put some more work into it and actually do the zombies event. We heard about this previously, but he confirmed that the Halloween event is going to be zombies this time, and it's going to be, I guess, a bit bigger than last time. So that should be super, super fun. We also have this end of line map coming up, which is leaning into this story-driven narrative experience as well. I'm slightly confused as to whether this is going to be purely story or whether it's going to be more multiplayer, because when Nikita was asked about how many players were going to be on each map, he said end of line was quite big and there would be lots of players, as opposed to Icebreaker where there's going to be very few players. So I don't know whether end of line is going to have way more people on it at the beginning, or whether it's going to open up later and have more people on it, or whether at the start it's only going to be single player.
How many people on Icebreaker and end of line? End of line, it's a lot. It's a pretty big location. On the Icebreaker, it will be limited, but I can tell you more.
We're going to have to see, but we know that there's at least 2 story missions coming for this particular map that they're working on, and this is going to add in some more storyline quests, more things to do. It's just going to give the player base some extra content to work with. Hopefully there's some interesting things down there. Don't really know how this is going to interact with the main storyline, and leaving, again, maybe it'll give another exit out of Tarkov, who knows, maybe it'll give us a new ending. Well, it remains to be seen, but it should be fun. We'll have a new place to explore, and hopefully we'll be able to have some sick PvP fights down there later on once the main sort of stuff in it is finished and they release it as a full map, a bit like Labyrinth. To round off our timeline for this year, Nikita said that BSG are still looking at doing 2 DLCs for this year, which seems very optimistic. I would be surprised if they end up releasing both, but who knows? Maybe they're working really well on them. I don't know. The first one is going to be the Scav Life DLC. We've heard about this for a while. This is going to give your Scav his kind of own storyline. At the moment, your Scav does have a set of levels and skills. So when you're on your Scav, you can look into that. You can't normally see it, but if you're on your Scav account and you're playing, you can go into your skills and see that your Scav does level separately, does have separate skills too. But this will give your Scav proper quests. There's going to be his own hideout. There's going to be a hub zone where you can kind of play cards with your friends or wager or something. There's going to be activities and things you can do with your mates to really build out the life of the Scav, rather than it just being a bit of a funding source for your PMC, which is for the most part what people use it for. I know I do. So this is going to be pretty cool. The second one is going to be the Clans DLC. We don't really have any information about what this is going to entail. maybe shared stashes and stuff like that, being able to move things between different people's groups. I have no idea. So that was one's coming second. I imagine that will come at the end of the year, if it comes this year at all. Otherwise, I imagine that's probably going to be coming next year, despite what BSG say, because it does seem like a lot of 2 DLCs in this particular year. Just before we move on to the bad stuff, because there are some things that I disagree with, unfortunately, that did make me quite annoyed. But before we do that, let's talk about the other stuff that I think is going to be good for the game. The first one is about shared PMC tasks. Now, we don't know exactly how this is going to work, but he talked about a system that sounds something like if there's 4 of you in a game and you're all going to try and kill Killer, one of you kills him and then you all get credited for it. Something along those lines. Now, if that ends up working for PMCs as well, I'm not sure if it's going to be as good. Imagine 4 guys going in with a Marlin and you're all trying to do shoot born in heaven on one particular map, and any kill that any of your buddies gets the PMC kill credited to your quest as well. That would make it significantly easier and a huge buff to go in as a squad, which maybe is what they want. I don't know. I feel like that's probably a bit too punishing for solo people. I don't mind it being for AI or for scavs, because if you're hunting, even hunting Killer as a duo or Sherman as a duo, one of you kills them and you have to go back in to kill them again, that is pretty frustrating. But I think the PMC kills, you probably should have to kill them yourself to get the progression on it. So we'll see what they do with that. The only part that does kind of make me worry about this, especially with the PMC side, is incentivizing cheating carries. We already know that cheating carries is quite a problem in EFT, where a cheater will take another player in who is paid to either go and get loot or get a quest done or whatever it might be. And if you now get credit for doing those things, a cheater can easily take somebody through and rush a player through a bunch of quests, through the boss kills, kill the goons, all that kind of stuff, like more easily. And I think that's potentially going to be increasing the amount of cheating in the game, or at least it incentivizes a bit more. So they do have to be a little bit careful with that, but hopefully it ends up being a positive change for players who are running in 2s or 3s and trying to kill the bosses, for example. He also mentioned about preset containers. So you'd be able to put a bunch of your stuff, I guess, into a container and then just equip it. This is all about quality of life and the ability to speed your way through different raids and get back into the action as soon as you can. Be quite nice to have these, little boxes that you can put your weapon, your armor, your helmet, like all the various things in, so you can just equip it. Because right now the preset system doesn't really work that well, and it doesn't help people get into raid that much. I think they would need to do a lot more work on it to make it work properly, and having people be able to just build their own presets is probably the best way, and put them in these little crates. So we'll see what that entails. They have done a lot of work. If you haven't actually played over the past couple of months and you haven't felt the speed of getting into raid, that could possibly be something that would bring you back, especially when Icebreaker comes through, because rather than waiting for 5, 6, 7 minutes to get into certain maps like Lighthouse, Shoreline, I end up getting into Shoreline usually in under 2 minutes these days. It really is crazy. You don't really even have time to sort out your inventory or anything before the map's loading. So it really is night and day what they've done with that. And if they can then speed up the kit process as well, which is already pretty good given all the drop downs and search bar and other quality of life things that we've got, then it could really fix this, which is one of Tarkov's biggest problems, always had been. It's mostly alleviated, but this is another feature that they're going to add in to try to make this even better. Now, Nikita did talk about quite a lot of different games and things and game modes and stuff that they were bringing to the game. Firstly, that they were looking at doing a console version. It did sound like they were in a relatively early stage for this, looking for various partners who are going to work on it and that kind of thing, but they are interested in doing it and trying to get it to work. He also talked about some kind of single player version of Tarkov that's related to a mobile phone, but it isn't a mobile game and it's not a port or anything like that, but they didn't want to reveal any details. So we've got that coming at some point. Then there was a Steam game that they were going to bring out, which is free, which is the Tarkov Guncyclopedia, and that's effectively going to be the weapon builder system and allows you to shoot on the range and stuff like that, without actually having to buy the game, because a lot of people love using Tarkov to build their favorite weapons. It's probably the most comprehensive weapon building system in any game on the planet, to be honest with you, especially for realistic parts. And one of the great things about EFT is that all the stuff is called, for the most part, what it actually is in real life, which is really super nice. So that'll be fun to see what that entails. It'd be quite nice to actually be able to open up the gun builder on Steam without having to open the full game potentially, so maybe that'll be useful for me. I don't really know. And he said that there was a potential to add VR into that, which is really cool. I remember playing a VR game a long while ago and getting into that game and trying to figure out how to actually do the reloads and stuff without actually ever having handled these guns before. Because normally, you just go on the keyboard and press R, whereas actually trying to take like a P90 mag out, whatever. It's super cool anyway. VR is super cool. If you do have a headset, then we'll see if they manage to get that in or not. That probably is a Nikita soon thing, so whether it comes or not, I don't know. But the Gunpedia thing that they want to put on Steam does sound pretty sweet. Couple of other little technical things. They're going to be bringing in FSR 4 with Unity 6 soon. Unity 6 is already on Arena. They were testing it on ETS, which is now not under any NDA, or not even NDA, just, you know, you're going to get kicked out if you talk about it kind of thing. So we could look forward to that soon. Some people were saying that Streets and other maps felt better on that. We're going to get some mag loading animations at some point as well. And there's going to be an in-game store, which is going to replace the one on the website. Maybe it'll be as well as the one on the website. But that means that you'll be able to then buy things within the actual framework of the game. And for that, they're going to introduce a new premium currency, which is the Tarcoin. I don't think this is an issue at all, honestly. This is just the same. It's just an intermediary layer between going on the website and buying a skin. You're able to also find it in game, so in some ways it's actually technically better. And so long as it's just for cosmetics, and he did say it was not going to be for pay to win, so fingers crossed, then it doesn't really make any difference. I did see some people saying that, oh, you know, it's a slippery slope and it's going to be pay to win and whatever, but we'll talk about that next, because I don't think that's pay to win. However, the consistent push for the Unheard Edition continues. They revealed two things, one of which I'm bothered about more than the other. The first one being that if you have the Unheard Edition, you will be able to wear the clothes or the skins or whatever from either faction on either faction. So technically speaking, you'll be able to piece together the two pieces of winter clothing, the white ones, the top and the bottoms from USEC and Bear. Put those together, you'll be able to wear the Bear clothing on USEC, the USEC clothing on Bear, only on Unheard Edition. Kind of annoying that it doesn't include EOD. It's just cosmetics, so I guess it doesn't really matter, but the principle of it irritates me, to be honest. Given the scale of the previous scandals we've had over the Unheard Edition in the first place, it seems very strange to me why you would just irk people who have been with you from the start and are on EOD when you said that you were going to get everything, and it was already an expensive package back then. And these people, including myself, probably paying for the Reader Battle Pass and all these other things. So it just feels a little icky to try to get people to go for Unheard. If we wanted Unheard, we'd have bought it already. I don't want Unheard. Don't penalise me for not getting Unheard. It's silly. So that leads me on to the second part, which is experience bonuses for different accounts. The only one that was revealed was the Unheard Edition bonus of 20%, so 20% XP, and that counts for anybody who is in your squad. So if you don't have Unheard and you're with a party member who does have Unheard, you will actually receive the 20% bonus. So only one of your friends needs to get it if you do want to min-max it and get the bonus. He did say that different accounts were going to get different levels of bonus, but he didn't reveal details, so who knows, maybe it'll be 20% for Unheard, 10% for 15% for EOD, 10% for the next one down, 5%. I don't know. But that one is pay to win and is unnecessary. I don't want a 15% bonus on EOD. Just get rid of it. The playing field is already uneven enough as it is. I don't think people need a 20% incentive bonus to go and buy Unheard instead. Just cut it out. I really don't like it. Unfortunately, that was quite early in the Tarkov TV. They put me in quite a bad mood, actually, just because of the principle of it, you know. I know there's quite a few people who've said to me, like, well, it doesn't matter, who cares? And like, it's 15%, you know, is an XP bonus? What's XP useful for anyway? But it's just the whole thing, you know. Given the history, I feel like they need to be more squeaky clean to not annoy people. I'm not going to stop playing the game over it, obviously, but it's irritating. If you don't agree, whatever. If you do agree, whatever. We're still probably going to be playing the game anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But I think it's a bit icky. The only other thing that I thought was a bit strange was he said their plans were to reduce the squad size down from 5 to 4. And the reason that he stated for this was that it was impossible fighting against a 5-man squad playing as a solo. But playing as a solo against a 4-man squad is almost equally as impossible, to be honest, if you're playing against anybody who's competent. And in my experience, most players who play in a 5-man are not very competent. So I actually don't really see the point. If there's 5 good players or 4 good players, you're still going to die as a solo player if you face off against them and they know what they're doing. So it really is kind of by the by. I wouldn't even care if they allowed 6 players into a squad, to be honest with you. It kind of just makes them easier to see, lull into a false sense of security. And as a solo player, you can use all the tricks in the book to whittle a 4 down to a 3, down to a 2, down to a 1, or potentially just kill 2 and then leave. Like, that's the beauty of being solo, you know, you can do what you like. So I don't really understand why they would do that. There's some people that do play the game as a 5 and split into, you know, a 2-man squad and a 3-man squad and play them out together. It seems a strange restriction to put in at this point in the game's life cycle when it's really a non-issue, and us solo players have other more pressing problems to talk about, such as the down but knocked out system, which we may as well talk about now. I was going to leave that until later, but the down but knocked out system is supposedly coming so that you can then be revived in some fashion. Now, I need more clarity for this because this is one of the biggest bugbears about extraction shooter type games where they enforce squads for one reason or another. and the revive mechanic makes it very, very difficult as a solo player to counteract them if it's done in a lenient way. I don't think Tarkov will have this in a lenient way, to be honest with you, but the fact that it's even possible does make it a little bit tricky. You imagine a game like Grey Zone Warfare where the coma system doesn't really prevent solo players from winning, to be honest with you, because it takes a long time to get somebody back up. So if it's like that, then I won't really mind. It just allows your buddies to get back into the fight if they're damaged but not too damaged. You know, if you headshot somebody, you expect them to die and that be it. But if you're able to get them back up and it takes you maybe a minute to get somebody all the way back up to full HP and an intensive minute of healing and everything else, that means you can't do it in a firefight when the solo player's there, which I don't mind. I think that'll be okay. But we just have to be, keep an eye on it and see what happens. Not going to be any, instant res injecting special stims or anything like that, because that would go down a dark path for me personally. Right, next up, there are still some things that we need clarification about, but I'll leave that to the next section. Next, let's talk about Prestige, because this has changed significantly. Up until now, Prestige required Kappa to get through because the task New Beginning was locked behind Collector, which was the last task for Kappa, and you needed to collect all the stream items in the game, all finding raid, as well as completing almost every other task, all the important ones anyway, including the irritating bolt action tasks and everything else, so that you could then get Collector finished and then do New Beginning, which allowed you to Prestige. BSG have completely overhauled Prestige and made it much, much, much easier. So you can see here, this is the new level 1 Prestige. I haven't prestiged on my main account, and I think I'm probably not going to, just because I'm going to end up going and prestiging like 3 or 4 times in the space of a few months. And given that, the seasonal account is so close, I don't want to do that right now. Maybe eventually, but not right now. So you can see now that the new Prestige is character level 25, which is pretty low, and the only task you need to do is New Beginning. New Beginning is now no longer linked to Collector, and you need the Intelligence Center at level 1, Rest Space at level 2, Nutrition Unit at level 2, and 10 million rubles. So this is not really that hard. Let me just switch over to Ragman. I'll show you what the New Beginning task looks like now. So here, this is actually updated after I completed it. So you need to kill 50 scavs, survive an extract from the lab 1 time, hand over any PMC figurine, any scav figurine, any boss figurine, and any trader figurine. And these are not found in raid. So the first Prestige doesn't require finding raid at all. So it's very, very, very straightforward. The second one, if we go over to Prestige 2, this one does then need found in raid stuff. So New Beginning is a little bit harder, but this is now character level 30, New Beginning and Taught, which you're basically just going to do anyway through the course of playing the game. Strength 10 and Endurance 10, Charisma 7, Intelligence Center 1, Rest Space 2, Nutrition Unit 2, and 15 million rubles. So again, this isn't really going to take that long, except for maybe a couple of the figurines, but it's not as bad because they're bucketed again. I don't have it to hand, but they're bucketed. It's not like you have to get all of the individual specific ones. Prestige level 3, you've now got 35 level, New Beginning, Tor, Falling Skies, Strength 10, Endurance 10, Charisma 7, and same thing on the Hideout, and then 15 million rubles, and then Prestige 4, character level 40, New Beginning, Tor, obtain the ticket from Tarkov. You do have to get through the storyline quite a way for Prestige 4, with Strength 15, Endurance 15, and Charisma 12 this time, same Hideout, and 15 million rubles again. These days, it is only at Prestige 5 where you need character level 47 and you have to do Collector. This is where you now basically need to Kappa for Prestige 5+. So if you did want to just go through and reset a few times, which could be kind of fun if you were starting again or you're kind of at about this level, you're early on in the progression, you could go through and get these prestiges pretty easily. Given that I'm level 52 or something, and I've got a bunch of money, and I've got all my stuff, and I'm still going through the storyline actually, and seasonal is just around the corner, I'm very unlikely to go and prestige my character, just because I don't see the point, and I don't want to have 2 low-level characters. I like making weapons guides with high-level things, and if I end up resetting, and then I don't have enough time to grind up, then I'm not going to have a character at level 4 traders, which is just going to be really quite annoying. Not that it matters that much now, because of the way that the weapons are balanced, but even still, I want to have one character that is up at the top level so I can engage with all of the high-end content as it comes through, and when seasonal comes through, we'll be able to start again on there. That being said, I may do a prestige run on a separate account just to see kind of what the process feels like now, but it's not going to be on my main, it'll be on my second account that I usually use for hardcore. But we'll see what that looks like. Maybe I'll have my second account at Prestige 4 and my main account won't have Prestige at all. We will see. But this is significantly different. So if you were thinking about doing Prestige, now is the time. I always thought the Prestige should have been easier than it was. This is probably more than I expected. I thought you'd have to get at least to level 4 traders to be able to do this. But now they made Prestige 1, 2, 3, and 4 much, much easier. It's doable for most people, at least the first level of Prestige. Around the Prestige system itself, Nikita did say that they were toying with the ability to potentially skip certain Prestige requirements for rubles. That would be very appealing to me to try to get rid of Psycho Sniper. It's one of the reasons why I don't really want to do Kappa again, and I'll lose my Kappa if I prestige on my main account, which does sound kind of rubbish because I really don't want to do Tarkov Shooter 8 again, or the Bolt Action quest. I don't want to do Shooter Born in Heaven, especially in a low player base end of wipe situation where most players are decent and don't really want to get headshot by a Marlin. So I don't feel hugely incentivized to go and do it. So we'll see about that if you can skip some of these raids just for money. Probably be expensive, but that'll probably be okay. Then in terms of other clarifications, so Nikita mentioned that there's a quest rework coming. We've heard this a few times. They said they're going to change up a lot of the missions, they're going to reduce the grind, and a lot of this is in line with them trying to bring new players into the game because there's just so much grind and difficulty with the tasks in terms of time, not necessarily how hard they are, but just in terms of time spent. And this is one thing that players have consistently said for years, is that Tarkov doesn't respect players' time and that you need to dedicate your life to the game, you know? It's a huge investment in time to go and play EFT, and this is what puts a lot of people off. You can't really play any other games while you're playing it. So it sounds like Nikita is potentially trying to combat this a little bit, and we'll see a bit later with some of the other new player stuff, what is he's trying to do with that exactly, and how hardcore players might feel about this, but this is going to be one part of it, trying to reduce the quest grind. This is also going to be the same thing for hideout as well. They said that he is looking for faster hideout progression too, so maybe reduce requirements. He didn't really give any details about that, but maybe a little bit easier, or maybe just the fact that you don't have to do as much stuff found in raid. I would say it's actually kind of a middle ground right now. It's not as bad as when it was found in raid required, but obviously you can't just buy your way through it like you used to be able to, except for, you know, the labs items, which you used to have to go and get. But he wants to reduce the requirements on that as well. They're also going to do a trader rep rebalance. So in terms of which trader reps you get certain items, I mean, this needs to be done. There does need to be a full balancing pass done on especially the weapons and the weapons components now that they've changed them so much. After we've gone through, you know, the grips and the barrels and the handguards and the stocks rebalance, most of that seems to be set. I actually quite like the way that the guns are set now. I actually think it's okay, but the prices are all over the place, and where you get access to different grips and everything else is just a complete mess. So they need to completely look at like how much everything costs and where you get those things at different trader levels, and it's partly their own doing because of this balancing pass that they did, but they did say that they were looking to do that next. One other thing that I need clarification for is he mentioned that there was going to be a way to spectate teammates. Now, if that's not going to be on like a little video camcorder up in the corner of your screen, if you have to pull it up on an iPad, you know, put your gun away and like look at where your other like people aren't just good. They're just not going to use it, and they're going to use Discord instead like they do right now. So it would have to be, in my opinion, integrated into the game and put up as a little like heads-up display or something. Otherwise, people are still just going to use the third-party tools outside of the game to do it. So remains to be seen exactly how they go about doing this, whether it's going to be an extra item that you have to buy, because if the tools outside the game are easier than the tools in the game, people are just going to use the tools outside the game, which is something BSG have struggled with for ages, just trying to get into that mentality, because it's one of the reasons why everybody ends up using the wiki. And some of these new player quality life things are going to go against that too as well. But we'll talk about it in a sec. I'm getting ahead of myself. So the other one is, he mentioned there's an event called Wild Woods at some point, which I guess is going to be a Wild West type event, but he gave like no details whatsoever about. We talked about the unconscious state already. I had that plans to go here, but I actually did talk about it already. And that they were going to do a skills overhaul. This is the thing, right? I was surprised that all of this is coming now and not at 1.0, but in BSG's mind, I think 1.0 literally just meant the story, and the game's just carrying on. This should be good for all of us. We know that they're continuing to update the game, and they're continuing to develop the game kind of as they did before. He didn't say exactly what, but we know that skills are a bit unbalanced because some of them just take forever. He was also going to do a night raids overhaul as well, because he said on the cast that it's only about 1% of the raids that are night raids, which I can well believe. I hardly do any night raids at all. Some people don't do any. I know some people do quite a few, but the vast majority of players only play in the day. So they wanted to maybe change the loot pools a little bit, you know, increase the loot pool, maybe put Black Division on it, make the night raids a bit more interesting so that people actually want to go and do them rather than just playing in the day. I think one of the biggest issues is that when people are showcasing the game, they're showcasing it in the day because it's so much easier for viewers to watch on the screen when you can see what's going on and it's not all, you know, just green, nighttime, night vision goggles, everything's dark. It makes it difficult to watch on Twitch or YouTube live. So most streamers just stick to daytime raids if they can help it. I think that's possibly one of the reasons why you see so much daytime footage for EFT, but we'll see what they do. Maybe they'll make night raids good. I still don't really like night, but maybe I'll be tempted in if there's better loot, who knows. The final section I have for you here is leaning on more of the new player quality of life stuff. So we talked about a few things already, trying to make tasks easier and the hideout easier. And it does sound like BSG are making a push into the more casual audience. They're not going to make the game crazy simple. just because of that, but it's clear with games like Ark and Grey Zone Warfare, with its PvE mode being the dominant mode, to be honest, that it makes sense to try to bring some more people in that way. I don't blame them at all. So they're going to add this system where quest items show a little dot. It's a bit like the perception dot, but with a bit further range on it, and shows you roughly where they are. So you don't have to play Escape from Monkey Island, you know, point and click adventure style like we do in EFT, which means that we all need to go to the wiki, and everybody who's played the game for a while knows where to go because we've read the wiki 8 times or something, or we just got it up on the side, to stop new players from just trying to play the first few quests and not being able to do it and getting bored. This is one of the biggest problems with retention for EFT. It's just how hard those quests are, and knowing that you need to go to a third-party website to do it. So this is one way that they're supposedly trying to reduce that level of overhead for new players playing the game. They're also going to introduce some kind of GPS system, a simple one and a more advanced one. I believe the simple one is roughly going to show you where to go, and the advanced one is going to have an actual map. And it's not going to show you exactly what to do, but there'll be something like, you know, the rough location of extracts and that kind of thing to give new players a way to actually get into the game again without using third-party tools. Because right now, it's by far the easiest way to use third-party tools, and you can see that using different mechanisms for this stuff, like Grey Zone Warfare did in their latest patch. I haven't gone on the website really at all for really anything, because all the quest stuff now, you've got, you know, a broad area for it. It makes it more fun. You don't want to just be spending 24 hours where you're about to be shot in the head, roaming round and round and round the same area, not being able to find this tiny little pixel in the corner, or just dying on the way to extract because you literally couldn't find it. You had no idea where it was. So all of this is to try to help new players. Now, some people I did see have already started grumbling about this, but I think for the most part, it doesn't make any difference to us veterans at all. We already know the maps. We already understand where the extracts are. I know that we had to deal with that back in the day, but now it's not back in the day. You know, the game's been out for nearly 10 years. We want new players to be coming and playing it. So let's lower the boundary a little bit. Then it means you can go and kill them if you want to, you know, whatever. Welcome to Tarkov. You still have to deal with the PvP. The game's already so hard for new players just because people have got thousands of hours. So the average player that you fight has got 3,000 hours in this game. So give them a bone. I don't think it's that big of a problem. Like, don't worry about it too much. There's a few other things as well. Speeding up the insurance system so that you get the stuff back faster, which I don't think is that big of a deal. More support packs for new players. So right now, I think you get a pack every day. Prepple says, hey, like, you know, you're new and here's some extra stuff. So they're going to give some more things for new players that way. And also free weekends for PvE are presumed to try and get people actually into the game and playing the game. So, you know, between this and the Gunpedia thing, they've got some ideas for, you know, basically giving people some free tasters of what the game's like. I think this sort of goes hand in hand with them doing the free weekends on Arena, which I think they should probably just make Arena free, to be honest. I don't know how many more sales they're going to get on Arena, like naturally, outside of, you know, selling the Unheard Edition packs where it comes with that. But if they made it free, then I think that could be a great gateway to get people into the game, especially alongside the Steam sort of gun builder thing. So I don't know, that's just my personal thoughts. But anyway, this at Tarkov TV was absolutely huge. It kind of alleviated all my fears about EFT going forwards, partly because of like the little bit of disappointment around 1.0 and that it was just the storyline, which I know was a huge piece of work, but it didn't really change the way that the game plays fundamentally. The game's still roughly the same. Yes, there's more missions and there's lots to do, and there's like traders which you can go and speak to and stuff. And that's cool, and you can actually escape from Tarkov, and that's great. But I think a lot of people felt that didn't necessarily justify the amount of work that had gone into it, and that they were expecting some other things too. And these are the other things that we've been waiting for. And 1.0, fortunately, just meant that storyline, and they're just going to carry on developing the game and adding more interesting stuff and cool things as they always have done. Which makes sense because people still love it. Tons of people still play, and they've got arena battle passes, which they're still going to make money on, and yes, continuously pushing the Unheard thing, which... It's a shame. It's a shame. I get it. I understand, you know, and if you want to buy Unheard, that's okay. I don't mind, but I think sometimes BSG could go about that in a bit of a different way. But either way, I'm super positive about Tarkov's future. I'm definitely enjoying the game right now. I'm still going through the storyline on my own. As I said, so I'm doing storyline on my main account. If you want to follow along with that, come over on Twitch or YouTube Live and come and watch me there. Also, I'm probably going to be starting to do this prestige run thing, just to see how quickly I can get through the prestiges on a second account. That could be quite entertaining as well, going from kind of level 1 and building back up from there. So I might do that soon, do a little series with it, maybe play with some other people and stuff like that. So we'll see. Keep your eyes peeled for those. So yeah, if you've got any questions, put them down in the comments. Otherwise, as usual, a big shout out to all my patrons, and as always, have fun in your raids.